Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We welcome you all for this wonderful Chetana festival, and we are really grateful to you for having come in such wonderful large numbers on a special weekend. Before I begin, I actually offer my heartfelt prayers to the lotus feet of my Gurudev, who has nurtured me with his ceaseless love and shelter, to all the devotees in my life and my family, who have nurtured me with their unquestionable help and overall support, by which I am at this place today to speak something on their instructions, and have developed a genuine attitude of at least trying to emulate them in whatever way I can. What's the topic today? Are you inquisitive to know what it is? Okay. I'll just begin with a small, a parable. Okay. So what's this parable about? I'll just read about it. Once there was an island where the lived together. Many feelings lived together. One day there was a storm in the sea, and the island was about to drown. Every feeling was scared, but love made a boat to escape. All the feelings jumped into the boat, except for one feeling. Any guesses? Very nice. So love got down to see who it was. It was, as you all great souls have said, ego. Love tried and tried, but ego didn't move. Everyone asked love to leave ego and just come into the boat. But love was meant to love. So it remained on the island with ego. All other feelings survived. They were left alive. But love died because of ego. So I'll begin this talk with this parable. Next. We'll just cover this topic under a few headings. The headings will be: what's the history behind this Valentine's Day? Why do we feel the need to celebrate it? Our desperate search and what it is about. The nature of exchanges in this world. The attributes of true love, the complete source of love, how to access this love, and a secret but an open invitation. So next, the history behind Valentine's Day. Valentine was actually a saint. He was Saint Valentine. And what was he famous for? Why do we still celebrate Valentine's Day? He lived during the reign of Emperor Claudius II. And at that time, the soldiers who were drafted into the war, they were not allowed to marry. Why? Because the king thought that probably, these soldiers who are married, once they are married, they'll just get entangled and they'll not be able to serve the country. And neither did the parents of the girls want their girls to be married to the soldiers, because they thought they are slaves to the king, so we don't want our daughters to be married to slaves. At this time, when the soldiers were actually lost, they didn't have any companion to share their love with, Saint Valentine got them married to girls, to young, nice girls. And so he was celebrated for allowing them to marry. But the emperor, because he transgressed the laws, he ordered for his execution. And whenever this Saint Valentine would get the soldiers married to girls, he would give them small gifts. What was that? It was a heart cut out, made up of parchment paper. And he would say, this I give to you both. And you should, seeing this love, seeing this heart, you should remember the vows to each other. And you should remember the vows which you have given to God. So he arranged for their marriage, keeping God in center. But nonetheless, the king, he ordered for his execution, and there he was behind the bars. Now, when he was, before he was to be actually executed, the king's daughter fell ill. And this person, Saint Valentine, being a saint, he was connected to God, he had divine powers. So he healed the daughter, the princess of the fever. And the girl started developing an attachment to this saint. And just before he was executed, he wrote a letter in remembrance of that girl to the princess, saying, and he wrote whatever he wanted to convey, and he signed, "Your Valentine." His name was Valentine, so he can sign. We sign your whatever, Anita. So, your Valentine. So that's how Valentine's Day, it started to be celebrated, because he was the symbol of love, and he practiced love, he preached love. So that's why we still celebrate Valentine's Day. Now, how do we celebrate Valentine's Day? Generally, we give gifts, right? These gifts could be, it could be just some chocolates, some flowers, some sweets, whatever you like to give to your beloved. Nowadays, we give expensive gifts also, iPads and iPods and whatnot. So, we give to, just to reciprocate our love with the person whom we love. Do you know that Valentine's Day is also celebrated in some other ways? In some countries, Valentine's Day is celebrated by the parents giving gifts to their children. Next. Sometimes the children give parents their gifts, right? And sometimes it's gifts shared between friends. So it's not just limited to Valentine's gifts being shared amongst lovers. It is all exhaustive, It encompasses friends, it encompasses parents, kids, and whoever you love. Just like we saw in the drama, it can be to anyone whom you love. Next. Why do we feel the need to love? It's an inherent nature of the soul. Don't you feel so? We want to love, and we want to feel love, right? We want to love, and we want to be loved, right? You can see whether it is adults, whether it's old grandparents, or little children. When you rebuke them, they become sad, right? They are just willing, they are waiting when we can give them love back. So like this child, she's probably sad. So whether any age, any caste, any creed, what to speak of humans, even animals, they need love. Because that's the nature of the soul, to love and to be loved. Next. These are the pictures of the baby in the womb, the embryo. You can see it's smiling. Why? It can feel the mother's emotions. Don't think that the baby doesn't have emotions inside. Whatever the mother goes through, the baby feels it. So the mother probably here, it's too happy, and the baby is expressing that, and that's how it's captured in the image. For that matter, it said, when you are very happy, don't promise. Because you may not be likely to keep the promise. You're so overjoyed that you just forget about the promise. Anyway, next. What is this love based on? Imagine if you have all the wealth of the world, right? And you're just a lone person in the entire planet. Will you experience love? You will not, because love means it's an exchange between two living entities, right? Whether it's an animal body or a human body, it's love. It's exchange between two living entities. Yeah. So you can see here, this person probably he owns the entire planet, but he's totally aloof, right? He can't experience love with all the material facilities he has at his disposal. He can't feel the love. There's a story of this person called as Rockefeller. He was a very rich millionaire from the US, and he had a son. This son wanted to do some postgraduate PhD studies. So, and his topic was to study about the cannibals who eat human flesh. So he went to this island called New Guinea, right? And there he studied them. He interviewed in whatever language of communication he could, and his thesis was almost ready. And when he went, he was about to go back to his place. Somehow the boat or the ship, whatever he was riding in, it met an accident, and this same person, the cannibals actually ate him up. The persons whom he researched on, they ate him up. Now this Rockefeller, can you imagine what was his state? He was a millionaire with everything at his disposal. He couldn't do anything. He was bereft of his son, and nothing actually could ever pacify him or give him any happiness, because he didn't have a son whom he could exchange his love with. Next. So what are we searching for? If we are meant to love and to be loved, what are we searching for? And actually it's a very desperate search. What is it? For a friend, for a lover, right? For a guide, for a shelter. Is it just for a few hours or for a few days? No. We need a guide, a friend, a shelter for a life, right? And that's what our desperate search is. Whoever we meet, we are just trying to look for that love, isn't it? Next. And what happens when we find such love? We are on the top of the world. Nothing actually matters, you know. You are just in that cloud nine, on that cloud nine. Everything else is just like, nitty-gritty things, right? So you actually feel on the top of the world and you are so joyous, right? And what happens when you don't get that love? Next. Your world comes crashing down. The castles which you built on the sand of time are just washed away. And what just remains is some memories or a dream, right? So the same happiness which you got, once you are bereft of it, your entire world comes crashing down. So that means we are so desperately looking for it and we are so dependent on it. Next. Why do we feel this sadness when we lose that love? And why do we lose that love? If love is supposed to be the origin of everything, why do we feel that sadness? Because it is temporary. It is flickering. It is based on mutual give and take, right? It is based on limited resources. And it's many times based on selfish agenda. It's something like Srila Prabhupada said, you scratch my back and I scratch yours. When I have some scratch on my back, you scratch, and when you have, I scratch. That's it. When the scratch is over and when we no longer need each other, that's it. It's two poles apart. Is that what love is supposed to be? No, it's supposed to be much beyond that, right? So what is that beyond? Let's see. We can take some examples of why we say that, the love in this material world has these attributes of being temporary or based on selfish agenda. You are not, I don't think any of you is married, but you must have seen your relatives, your cousins getting married. Now, what was the institution of marriage like before? Maybe around 100 years back? The couple got married and then they started loving each other. Right? They didn't even know each other before they got married. Just because the parents decided, and the parents know well what is good for their children, they decided and the couple got married. And later they started developing love for each other. And later, what has it been? What is it? Yes. So now we first love. We think maybe the parents don't know really what I really want. So we first love and then we enter marriage. Fine. Good enough. At least you are married. And what's the current trend? What's the current trend? There's some relationship, relationship. Living in relationship. You don't feel the need to go for an arranged marriage. You don't feel the need to have a love marriage. You just live in. Why? Let's see whether it works out, If you're compatible, compatible is a big word, and they understand it. If it's compatible, we'll marry. If not, then I think we better separate. And how do they separate? They just text each other. I think we better separate. That's it. That's the end of the love affair. And even if they marry, it's a deal. It's a pact. You know how armies, they would sign pacts. Okay, you do this thing and I will take back the war. So it's a pact or a deal. In West, it's very common. Once you enter a marriage bond, you sign a bond. If you survive with me for 1 year, you'll get this amount. If you survive for 10 years, 10 times more. Right? So it's a deal. The more number of years you stay together, that amount of money you will get when we part. So it's actually a deal. It's not love. What are the rates of divorce like in our country? Any idea? It's huge. But it was huge and it is continuing. But in the West, there's a good news. The divorce rates have started coming down. Isn't it nice? Yeah, it's nice. How have they started coming down? They don't marry. Very good. People no longer marry. So what's the question of divorce? You just say, text a message, that's it. So people no longer enter into that bond of marriage, and that's how the divorce rates are much lesser. Next. So where has the concept and the practice of real understanding, commitment and sacrifice gone? Love is supposed to be sacrificing. Where has it gone? Next. Let's look into some other relationships. Say the father and the son. But when the child is small, when the son is small, the father just loves him so much. When the child is adolescent, the father tolerates. And when the child becomes a young man, there's so much ego that the father and son no longer want to stay together. The child doesn't want to see the father's face. The father doesn't want to see the child's face, right? So that's how it's now. What about siblings? When the parents are no longer there, the same siblings who loved, who were together under the shelter of the parents, they will now fight and do anything to get a small part of that property which the parents left behind. And what about friends? You are the thickest of the friends, but when it comes to the desire for power and prestige, you don't mind just leaving your friend behind. You just want to go ahead without them, right? So it's not just between lovers, it's between other relationships also, that the love is just decreasing, right? Next. The purest form of love in this material world, we all know. It's between the mother and the child, right? The mother, without any expectations, loves the child. She doesn't say, look, I'm changing your nappies, I'm feeding you, so when you grow up, you have to give me the interest. No. She doesn't take any EMI, she doesn't take any interest. She just loves, because that's her nature. Unconditional love. And, but, this is a modern world. Even the mother's love has decreased. You know how? Abortions. Just because you land into a pregnancy, and you don't want to continue it, you can just take the help of some medical rules and doctors to abort that child. That child within you, who's surviving, who's depending on you for everything of his, every need of his, you just abort and you don't even feel the pain of it. You don't even feel that, yes, there's a child, a jiva, a living entity dependent on me. You just crush it. Next. So where has love gone? Is it still amongst us or it has disappeared? Do you think it's amongst us? Let's see, where's the address of love? There's a small story here again. There was this grandma just sewing a sweater, and then her young grandchild, she comes and says, Grandma, I just don't know where is love. It just seems that I'm not able to find it at all. The grandmother just looks at her, nods her head, says, well, I'll tell you where it has gone. So then, while she's still knitting, the grandchild, puts her head on the grandma's lap, and the grandma says, long back, love was everywhere. Wherever you could see, love existed. But people started taking it for cheap. They started taking it for granted. So God decided to keep it in hiding. What did God do? God, He dug the earth and reposed love there. But then people came to know about it. They dug it and they found it. God said, no, they are still taking it for granted. So then He kept on the highest peak of the mountains. And they said, now it will be safe there. But people, they need love, right? So they went to the top of the mountains. They just got it back. And they still didn't care for it much. Then the Lord hid it in the deepest of the seas, the oceans. And the people swam